what has happened yesterday, and we had the attack in Dahia. Finally, Israel attacked. It was an empty building, as they mentioned after the attack. It seemed, I don't know if they knew that the building is empty, but the attack has happened.
Yeah.
They wanted to assassinate some, Hezbollah commanders, but they managed to kill some people, ordinary people who were close to the building. Then the Iranian response. I was yesterday when I did a podcast as a monologue, and I didn't know if Iran would respond or Yemen would respond. I thought that Yemen would respond to what has happened because they literally didn't kill any of the Hezbollah commanders. So that's why I thought that the empty building, that's going to be a response from Yemen, maybe some missiles from Yemen. But Iran has decided to respond it directly to send a message.
Yeah.
What was the point before getting to what is going on between Iran and Israel? What was the point of attacking that empty building? Did they know that building is empty?
No. Destroy the peace process. You know, the what Pepe and I reported more than a week ago. So, a week ago Thursday, the information we received was that the Iranian Supreme Council issued the warning to Prime Minister Sharif of Pakistan that they were going to stop, they're withdrawn from all nuclear talks. They were going to not deal with any kind of nuclear framework like a JCPOA, and that they were prepared to detonate a nuke to show their seriousness. And that information was conveyed to the United States. Now, by Pakistan. Throughout this period, Pepe and I have been told through the source that Pakistan remains very optimistic about its prospects for securing a peace agreement, a peace deal that will be called the Islamabad Accords, that will be the United States and Iran signing off. And I think what they'll sign off on is basically something that Trump will be able to present as I've prevented Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. That'll be the thing. And I'm surprised this narrative really hasn't picked up much. But there was the New York Times story that came out Saturday talking about Israel has increased its spying on Trump administration officials because they're trying to figure out what the hell is Trump administration doing with Pakistan. What this deal? What's the deal? Because Israel's scared to death that they're being cut out of the deal, which they are. That's true. Well, that was a leak orchestrated by, I'm told, Elbridge Colby and another Defense Department or War Department official that are advocates for a settlement with Iran. And so the fact that you had this intense, this was deliberately leaked in order to paint Israel in the worst possible light, because when I first heard that, Israel's spying on the United States, it's like, yeah, no shit. And the sun comes up in the east. I mean, surprise, don't that gambling here in the casino? How could that be? Okay, so it was one of those. I'll call it a Casablanca moment.
Exactly.
With Claude Rains. Gambling at the casino. Let's arrest those people. But we've also got then the change in Trump's demeanor. I mean, he looks bad, but he has not been saying the outrageous things he was saying 3-4 weeks ago about Iran. In fact, he's almost like conciliatory. So he's keen on getting a deal. So this was Bibi Netanyahu, and then the Iranians themselves had declared that any further attacks on Beirut, they would retaliate, and they warned the people in northern Israel, get the hell out. You'll be we're coming after you. So this was a deliberate effort by Bibi Netanyahu. I think he ordered the strike in order to knowing that Iran would respond, that Israel would get hit, and then Israel would use that as a justification to bring the United States into it, and that would kill the deal. Didn't happen. Trump basically said, no, you stay out. Tried to talk him out of doing any kind of retaliation. And then I guess the last thing he said was, if you do it, you're doing it without us. You're on your own. So here's, the Israelis, I think, actually had never thought that Trump would leave them hanging. And Trump left them hanging. And so they've responded with, Iran fired that first volley, 5 waves, 4 missiles per wave, so a total of 20 missiles, hitting a variety of targets in Israel. But it wasn't, it was more designed to say, hey, we told you not to do it, so here, we're smacking you upside the head a little bit, but we're not really punishing you. And at that point, Israel, instead of listening to Trump and holding their fire, they decided to retaliate, and they lose. I think sent about 11 missiles. They hit at least five different sites. Several of them sites that they believe that the missiles have been launched from. And so, what does Iran do? A few, like an hour later or half hour later, they fire more missiles at Israel from those very sites that Israel had hit with its missiles. Basically said, hey, fuck you. You didn't lay a glove on us. That kind of thing. And then, I believe Israel responded after that. Iran has since responded again. And the really important development that people need to pay attention to is what Larijani, and let me pull this up because it's there it is.
Larijani, the head of the Council of Experts?
Yes, the expedient, they call it the Expediency Discernment Council. Sadek Larijani. I guess was it his brother it was his brother?
Exactly. His brother was the head of the Security Council, the head of National Security Council.
Okay. So Sadek Larijani said that, and let me quote, Tehran's intervention in support of Lebanon constitutes a formal declaration of a new strategic doctrine under which attacks on any component of the resistant axis will trigger a response that extends beyond geographic boundaries and reshapes regional equations. Now, Larijani said that Iran has entered a new phase in which it no longer waits for threats to emerge before acting to preserve its regional positions. So this is something really new. Iran is taking the initiative. He also warned, apparently, that any expansion of the conflict or attack on critical Iranian infrastructure would be met with a comprehensive and deterrent response. So we're into new territory now. So basically, continued attacks on the Palestinians and Lebanese, Iran's going to continue to respond. They're going to continue to hit Israel with one missile after another. I think we're in, I'll liken this is sort of like the 12-day war, where by day 10, Israel was pleading with the United States, oh, get us out of this, help. But I think Israel's going to be pleading for help long before that. I think they'll be able to endure about 6-7 days of this, and then they'll be, tapping out, saying, okay, please get us out of this. And I don't think there's any exit this time.
There was a phone call, Larry, last night after Iranian attack in response to what Israel did in Dahi, in Lebanon. And the phone call between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump came out and said he told him not to attack Iran. Then we had Israeli media, for example, Channel 12, reporting that Israel is not going to respond after that. But we had the response from Israel, the attack on Iran. So what was that phone call, and what do we know about that phone call? It seems that Donald Trump tried to convince him, but he couldn't do it after all. How, what is the picture coming out of this? Because when you come out as the president of the United States, as someone who's responsible for this
Yeah.
war of choice, you started this war, and you're trying to convince Benjamin Netanyahu, that that convinced you to go to this war. He's the main reason of this disastrous war, and you're not capable of convincing him not to attack or to come down.
Well, it's not a matter of convincing. It's a matter of Trump deciding to withhold aid and to cut off aid and to cut off military cooperation and withdraw personnel. And so far, he's not been willing to do that. But this deal with Pakistan hangs in the balance. Trump really wants that deal. There is, and it's genuine. And the Pakistanis, the last information I had, the Pakistanis were optimistic that it was going to go through. Now, that said, I still think that there are some Iranian demands that the United States will be unwilling to meet, which will prevent this thing from being implemented. But it leaves the United States in a very difficult situation because Iran's got this, strategic initiative right now.
Israel says that they're not going to accept the new equation in the region. The new equation is what you've just mentioned with the case of Sadiq Larijani, at the head of Iran and the Council of Experts in Iran. And when he says that, to many people who don't know what is the Council of Experts, Larry, when there is a problem between the Guardian Council and the Iranian parliament, the Council of Experts comes in and somehow bring the two sides together or make some sort of decision. And it shows how important this council is when they're talking about the new strategy, the new equation of the region. If they're going to go preemptive, maybe if they feel that Israel is going to do something. The main point, I think, in this new message that you've just read for us is that they can go preemptive on Israel.
Oh, yeah, no, that's exactly right. Again, let me read the key phrase. It said, a formal declaration for this new strategic doctrine is that attacks on any component of the resistance axis will trigger a response that extends beyond geographical boundaries and reshapes regional equations. This is a new policy. This is something that Iran has not done in 47 years. And it is now tying its own security to that of the Lebanese people and of the Palestinians. So this is, I see it as, really a declaration of war against Israel.
There are people in Israel, like the head of opposition, Yair Lapid. He said that this war is not going to benefit the state of Israel, the continuation of this war.
Let's call that.
Is he trying to buy votes, or what is that?
Yeah, it's called no shit analysis. Yeah. Hey, if you jump off a 50-foot building with no parachute, you're going to break your legs, if not worse. Yeah, it's in that same category. Yeah, no kidding. And that was what I found so powerful a message yesterday by Iran, that within a half hour of Israel launching its attack on those specific sites in Iran turns around and launches missiles from those sites. Wait a second. I thought, again, destroying the myth of Israeli invincibility.
Now, Israel said, Larry, that the United States didn't participate in the attack on Iran, but they helped to defend Israel. What did they do? And what were the capabilities to defend Israel?
My understanding is the United States is essentially standing down. There's a lot of confusion out there too about, there was a bombing, or a couple of bombs went off allegedly at Prince Saud Air Base. initially blaming that on Iran. Iran said, no, that wasn't us. Then they tried to blame it on the Houthis. Again, I don't think that was the Houthis. I think that came from someone, a group connected with Israel, to make it look like it was Iran or look like it was the Houthis, because the Saudis and the Qataris have made a decision to now move away from their reliance on the United States. They're going to enter into this new strategic, I'll call it a strategic partnership that is being crafted together, assembled with Pakistan in the lead. It'll involve Turkey, Egypt, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. And behind it all, the I don't want to call them puppeteers, but this is sort of the vision of the Chinese and the Russians.
Yeah. The other important point, Larry, in the new announcement of Sadiq Larijani, he mentions all of Lebanon, not just Beirut.
Right, yeah, including southern, especially southern Lebanon. So there's, I know some have speculated that Iran will sell out Hezbollah. Just the opposite. They've made it now clear, Hezbollah, we got your back. We're here.
That's why we have Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, which is, we know that there are people in Israel who are agreeing on the policies in Gaza, in Lebanon, but
right.
They want to kill him. They want just to remove him from power, because they know this guy is not going to leave his position until he's alive.
Yeah.
It's going to stay there until the last moment. That's why, the fight is important. What's happening in Israel is important as well, to bring it to the equation.
Yeah, well, Bibi, he in recent photos, he doesn't look good either. Trump looks terrible. Doesn't, he's got a flushed face. His face is the color of my coffee cup. And then, yelling, and Netanyahu as well. He's got cancer, and that's usually, it eats away at you, and who knows if he'll be alive by the end of this year. But if he goes, that doesn't change Israel's policy, because this policy about destroying the Palestinians and even taking territory in Lebanon, that remains. I think a majority of Israelis are still backing that.
I think the outcome is basically forcing Israel to withdraw totally from Lebanon, because if you're there, you have to attack, you have to fight. If you fight, it's going to be a new escalation, and these cycles of escalation are going to happen to Israel. I don't know how long the United States can stay in the region, because we know Donald Trump, as you've mentioned, Donald Trump is not happy because of the global economy, because of the pressure that is coming from each and every, aspects of this war. And then, is that affordable for the United States to stay there? We know that Benjamin Netanyahu wants the United States to stay there, but after all, at the end, it's the United States to decide about, is that affordable for the United States to stay there or not.
Well, what does it mean to stay there? Do you mean to maintain?
To maintain the blockade, to maintain some sort of military presence, or maybe sending more weapons to these bases in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, or maybe trying to improve the bases in order to help Israel.
Well, yeah. So there's the problem. Number one, the U.S. has basically been driven out of many of the bases that they did have, and particularly like Al Udeid, the Combined Air Operations Center was an important command, and that reportedly is closed down now. Prince Saud Air Base, the U.S. presence there is under pressure to withdraw. So I guess we still have some presence in Kuwait, but Iran attacked that repeatedly this last week. Then you also see, they went after Bahrain. The U.S. still had some very sensitive, critical facilities, that I'll call them communications facilities, that were in Bahrain that were destroyed. And what I've heard is that the U.S. command, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and his people, that they believe that only could have been done with the assistance of either Russian or Chinese intelligence sharing with Iran. So the U.S. ability to maintain the kind of presence it had before, that's gone. They're going to have to spend billions of dollars to try to rebuild some of these sites. And it's not just a matter of not having the money. The Saudis and Qataris, according to the Pakistani source, have made the decision that they're not going to continue hosting the United States. They're going to tell the U.S. to get out. They're going to take their chances with Russia and China. And it'll all be part of this new security architecture that Pakistan is playing a leading role in trying to construct. So you get Egypt involved, Turkey, Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and then these are military forces become like a NATO or the CSTO for the Russians. So a security organization for the Persian Gulf that excludes the United States.